Most people go to work every day, trade their most precious resource, their time, for a paycheck, and then watch that paycheck slowly dissolve before their eyes. They see the price of a gallon of milk rise, the cost of their rent climb, and the dream of owning a home drift further and higher out of reach. When they ask why, they are given a list of excuses. They are told it is because of global supply chains, because of a war in a distant land, or because of greedy corporations. But what if I told you that all of these explanations are merely distractions? What if I told you that the rising cost of living is not an economic accident, but a deliberate, calculated policy? We are currently living through a period of silent inflation. It is an invisible hand that reaches into your bank account every night and takes a small percentage of your life's work without you ever noticing. It is the perfect crime because there is no blood, no sirens, and no visible thief. Today, I am going to peel back the curtain on what I call the state's master plan to expropriate the wealth of the middle class. We are going to look at how the very institutions designed to protect the economy are actually the ones dismantling your financial future. I will present three key theories: the Cantillon effect, financial repression, and the CPI illusion. Why is this happening now? Why is the middle class specifically being targeted? And most importantly, why does the state need you to stay ignorant of the silent tax? By the end of this video, you will understand the mechanics of your own impoverishment, and you will see why the old rules of saving money are now a recipe for financial suicide. To understand the scale of this expropriation, we first have to redefine what inflation actually is. In common language, we are taught that inflation is rising prices. But this is a lie. Rising prices are merely the symptom. True inflation is the expansion of the money supply. Think about it this way. Imagine you are playing a game of poker with your friends. There are 100 chips in the game, and you have 10 of them. You feel pretty good, don't you? You own 10% of the game's wealth. But suddenly, the house decides to introduce another 100 chips into the game and gives them all to the player sitting next to you. You still have your 10 chips. On paper, you haven't lost anything, but in reality, your share of the game has just been cut in half. You went from owning 10% to owning 5%. This is what the state does. It doesn't take your dollars, it just makes each of your dollars represent a smaller piece of the total economic pie. Do you understand this? Inflation is about your money getting weaker, because it allows the state to spend money it doesn't have, and the bill is paid by you through the loss of your purchasing power. It is a tax that never had to be voted on. This brings us to our first major theory, the Cantillon effect. This theory, named after Richard Cantillon, is the most important concept you were never taught in school. It states that money is not neutral. When new money is created, it does not enter the economy evenly. It doesn't just fall from the sky like rain on everyone's lawn. Instead, it enters at a specific point, usually through the central banks and large financial institutions. The people at the entry point, the first receivers, get to spend that money first. They can buy real estate, stocks, and hard assets at yesterday's prices. As that money moves through the economy, it slowly pushes prices up. By the time that money reaches the average worker, prices have already skyrocketed. The middle class and the poor are the last receivers. They pay the inflation tax. The wealth gap widens, not because the rich are working harder, but because the system is designed to funnel value toward those closest to the printing press. Do you see the unfairness in the code? Let's look at an analogy involving a leaky bucket. Imagine your savings are water in a bucket. You work hard to fill that bucket for your retirement or your children's education. But the state has poked a tiny hole in the bottom. Every year, 2%, maybe 10% of your water leaks out. The state catches that water and uses it for their projects and debts. When the central banks say they want 2% inflation, what they are actually saying is that they want to legally steal 2% of your savings every single year. Over a 40-year career, a 2% annual leak will destroy more than half of your purchasing power. Why do we accept this as a sign of a healthy economy? It is our dollar's silent expropriation. Now let's talk about our second theory, the trap of financial repression. This is a more sophisticated tool used by the state to deal with its own massive debts. When a government borrows trillions of dollars, it has a problem. It can't possibly pay it back through honest taxes without causing a revolution, so it uses financial repression. This happens when the state keeps interest rates below the rate of inflation. Imagine you put $1,000 in a savings account that pays you 1% interest. But if the actual cost of living has gone up by 8%, your $1,010 can only buy what $930 could buy a year ago. You have saved your way into poverty. The state, on the other hand, is the big winner. Their debt is fixed, but the value of those dollars is shrinking. They are paying back with cheaper money. This forces you to take more risk. You realize savings are a losing game, so you jump into the stock market or crypto. This creates asset bubbles, which the state then taxes through capital gains. They win if you save, and they win if you invest. The middle class is being squeezed from both sides. Do you see the trap? You are being forced to subsidize the government's overspending. Consider a fascinating historical experiment. The Edict on Maximum Prices issued by the Roman Emperor Diocletian in the year 301. Rome was facing massive inflation. Emperors had been debasing the currency, mixing copper into the silver coins to pay for their armies. When prices spiraled, Diocletian made it illegal for prices to go up. Rising prices are merely the symptom. True inflation is the expansion of the money supply. Think about it this way. Imagine you are playing a game of poker with your friends. Today, the state uses a more subtle version. Instead of a death penalty, they use the Annual Consumer Price Index or SALS or CPI to manipulate our perception of reality. Rising prices are merely the symptom. True inflation is the expansion of the money supply. Think about it this way. Imagine you are playing a game of poker with your friends. They use techniques like inside substitution. If steak prices go up, the government assumes you will buy cheaper hamburger meat, so they change the entire basket of goods. They measure survival, not lifestyle. Then there are our hedonic adjustments. If a new phone has a better camera, they claim the price hasn't gone up because you are getting ours more value. But you can't pay your rent with a better camera. Rising prices are merely the symptom. True inflation is the expansion of the money supply. Think about it this way. Imagine you are playing a game of poker with your friends. The moment you stop saving in fiat and start seeking alternatives is the moment the state loses power. But they know this. They are preparing for the modern digital enclosure. They are replacing the silent inflation of paper money with something even more powerful. Every cent you own will not just be devalued, but is being programmed and monitored in real time. To understand how they bridge the gap, we must look at once the artificial debt crises. A debt crisis is not a disaster. It is a political tool, like a controlled burn in a forest. Because a crisis creates fear, and fear creates a mandate for radical change. It is the shock doctrine applied to your wallet. When people are afraid, they will accept solutions. Every crisis in the last 20 years has resulted in the government having more power and the middle class having less privacy. This is the bridge to the digital cage. Imagine if the state didn't have to wait for prices to rise to take your wealth. Inflation was the analog version of theft. Programmable digital currency is the digital version. If they need to punish a certain sector of the economy, they can restrict your digital currency so it cannot be used at certain shops. It turns money into a tool for social engineering. Consider the analogy of the $1 company store. In the late 19th century, mining companies paid workers in Ashar scripts, tokens only spent at company stores. The workers were essentially debt slaves. We are building a global company store. When your money is a line of code controlled by the state, you no longer own your labor. You are merely renting your survival. You will be offered the digital solution as a way out. They will offer a universal basic income or a digital wallet DIGS. But the price is your total financial autonomy. Is that a trade you'll make? The middle class is the only group that poses a threat to a centralized state. Therefore, if you want total control, you must first break the back of the middle class. Have you noticed the trend of subscription services for everything? You don't own your movies, you rent them. You don't own your software, you subscribe to it. You don't own movies, you rent them. Now, they want you to rent your home, your car, and eventually your very currency. This is the neo-feudalism of the 21st century. Consider the Great Recoinage of 1696 in England. Coins were being clipped, shaved at the edges. The government recalled them all to issue new ones with milled edges. But there was a catch. The government didn't have enough silver. For months, the economy ground to a halt. People couldn't buy food and riots broke out. Who suffered the most? Not the wealthy who had gold and credit. It was the middle-class merchants and the working people who relied on the silver coins. We are currently in the digital recoinage of the modern era. The clipping is the inflation, and the new coins are the CBDCs. The goal is total centralization. What is the psychological impact? It destroys time preference. In a healthy economy, people save for the future. But when money melts, you develop high time preference. This leads to a culture of instant gratification, debt-fueled consumption, and the decay of the family unit. Why work hard today for a retirement that will be inflated away? Why build a home if the foundation is shifting sand? The Indian silent tax year is stealing your future-mindedness. It turns us into consumers easy to manipulate. That anxiety you feel, that is your time being stolen. You cannot win by playing their game. If you save in their currency, you lose. The only way to win is to opt out of the system wherever possible. Become your own central bank. You must become your own central bank. This means moving your wealth into assets that the state cannot create for free. This means gold, silver, productive land, and decentralized digital assets. The most valuable thing you can own in a period of silent inflation is a skill that people will always need. If you can fix, heal, or grow, you have a hard asset. As the state devalues currency and labor, they cannot replace trust. In a world of digital lies, trust is the rarest commodity. Your reputation and local network are things the state cannot expropriate. We must rebuild our local microeconomies. We must find ways to trade with each other directly, bypassing the digital ledger of the state. This is returns to self-reliance. The state expects you to be distracted by the latest political scandal or the latest viral trend while they pick your pocket. They expect you to be too tired to study the Ars Code, but you are here. You are beginning to see the master plan for what it is. It is not an accident, it is an architecture. And once you see the architecture, you can find the exits. Why is it so hard to admit this? Because it requires admitting institutions like central banks are not working for us. The state is no longer a protector, it is a manager of the middle class's decline. But here is the secret. The system is incredibly fragile. The silent inflation is a sign of desperation, not strength. They are printing money because they have no other way to stay alive. They are replacing the silent inflation of paper money with something even more powerful. Every cent you own will not just be devalued, but is being programmed and monitored in real time. Your financial survival is the foundation of your personal freedom. The fight against silent inflation is the fight for the very soul of the middle class. Own your time and your future. Look at your wealth as a measure of your independence. Every dollar moved into a real asset is a vote for your sovereignty. The state has a plan for you, but you can have a plan for yourself. Look at your wealth as a measure of your independence. Every dollar you move out of the system is a vote for your own sovereignty. The state has a plan, but you can have one for yourself. The middle class is being hunted, but the hunter is clumsy and arrogant. Stay awake, stay sovereign, and stay vigilant. My name is Jiang Xueqin, and I will see you in the next analysis.